Hello, world. I'm Tyler. It's my dad, Eric.
Hey there.
We are doing a little live stream here on. Oh, can you mute that? We have two computers running, and it's talking back to me. Gonna do a live stream on how to buy a classic car. If you're gonna buy a classic car, do you want to buy one that's been restored? Do you want to restore it yourself, or do you want to get one that doesn't run and try to make it run and work on it as you go? And I think this is a when you're on like Marketplace or Craigslist or something looking for a project. I think a lot of people have this issue where they like, I don't know if I want to get into that. Does this thing need too much work? Am I going to overpay by buying something that someone already made? Hello, Gavin and Logan. Thanks for coming here. Um, yeah, so I wanted to go over that, and we're going to take a couple minutes here, let a couple of people get into the lobby here, and go over some just housekeeping stuff real quick. The first thing I want to mention is that we have memberships now for Steel Beam Rally Team. So if it moves you, if you find value in my channel, in the projects that we do here, and all the tips and tricks and stuff like that, there's a way to kind of add value to my life if that works for you. So the lowest level here is $4.99 a month. You get a loyalty badges. I don't know. YouTube does that. You get photo and status updates that are only for members. Early access to new videos. You get to see exclusive videos, little ones that I'm doing while I'm doing the project. You get to see what I'm doing a lot sooner than you would otherwise, and stuff that no one else will see. Thank you, Kevin, for being at my TED Talk. And then members only polls, I guess, if there's a question. I would appreciate knowing what my most passionate members and most passionate viewers would like to see. The middle ground is $9.99. You get all those, including member shoutouts. Get a free drawing. I do illustrations, 7x10 pen illustration of one of my projects, whichever one's your favorite, and sign up for you, whatever. And then a sticker pack. So a sticker pack of stickers that no one else can get. So if you're interested in that, that's about $10 a month. And then the top tier one is $25 a month. I really don't expect anyone to choose that, but it's there. And that includes all the other things of the two other levels, plus drawing of your car and member shoutouts. So I'll mention you in the videos. So that's just something that's coming up here. I'm trying to figure out how to make YouTube more worth my time that I spend for editing. It's a lot of time commitment. Otherwise, let's start going. So you picked up a vehicle. We both had a few project cars in the past few years. You picked up a vehicle last fall. You want to tell us about the vehicle you picked up last fall? You purchased? Why did
Yes.
you choose the one you chose?
So I picked up a 1961 Chevy Corvair Rapside pickup, Corvair 95, because it has a 95-inch wheelbase. And I had a similar vehicle like that in high school, which I loved. So I've been kind of looking for one, and one popped up on Facebook, and picked her up. So
when I was going to get the project cars, the two Corvair Coupe project cars, the guy up there had a nice, a blue ramp side that was a driver, but it needed some work. What led you to your decision to buy the one you bought?
So I think when you're restoring or reviving a car, there's kind of two different camps that most people are in. One is somebody who knows how to do body work and fix a body. And the other one is somebody who knows how to do mechanical work and fix everything mechanical. So the blue ramp side needed some body work. And usually when it needs body work, you're a little unsure about what the frame looks like underneath too. So I really didn't want to get into that. I'm not a huge body guy. I'd rather do the mechanicals because I rebuilt the Corvair engine in 1974 when I was in high school on my other Corvair. And so I kind of know the mechanicals of it. So I think those are kind of the two camps. I also, so that truck I bought from a guy who does body work. He's got his own business, and he found an Arizona truck. It didn't have any rust, but it had a lot of bullet holes, so he fixed most of them. I think there's 2 left I have to fix. But he did paint it black, and I'm going to paint it to a factory color at some point here. So, but he also rebuilt the engine, and that thing runs good. And
So you'd say kind of pick the stuff that you don't want to do and then find someone who's already done that.
yeah, because I also have another project vehicle, a 1990 Chevy K2500 GMT 400. That one I've already done just about all the mechanicals except for the rear diff. So put a new engine in it and rebuilt everything and painted the frame and everything underneath, which is pretty easy. Now I'm into painting the body, and it's a pain in the ass for me. So, it's a ton of sanding. I stripped all the paint off on the metal, priming. I'm in the Bondo phase right now, just skimming some light dimples here and there.
We don't show that on the channel very much because it's not a very popular vehicle for YouTube, but it is a pretty nice truck. It's got a good interior and no rust, so it's a good candidate for doing something like that, even if the miles are pretty high.
Right.
And I have my own, the F100, the 65 F100 Boo Radley. I got, well, when I was 16, was kind of the first time that I kind of acquired that truck. My grandfather had it for a few years before that, and it's got 46,000 miles. It's good. You keep up on maintenance, and it just works. When everything else doesn't work, I can get in that and just drive. So it's nice to have an all original truck. It's nice to have one that someone already went through, because you know that it should be reliable for a long time if everything went right. The thing that gets you sometimes is you don't know if they did it right. You don't know what quality parts they did. And I want to thank Clark's Corvair Parts for sponsoring so many videos here, because I know that when I buy from them, I can get quality parts. Whereas if you get from, let's say, eBay or Rock Auto or something, you don't know if it's going to be a good thing or if it's going to break again. My Volkswagen has had a ignition coil malfunction a couple weeks ago, and I put an O'Reilly's coil in it, and it just did the same thing last week. So I'm wondering if that's a defective coil. You just don't know when you buy a car. Well, I did this and this and this. Well, what kind of parts did you use? Can I rely on it? One of the excellent things is if you buy a car that's already done, you just go drive it. You just hop in, turn the key, and you go. And I think there's something really to be said for that, because when you have to go and do work before you drive it, it can be a waiting game, and you don't want to lose that spark in your soul to go and enjoy the vehicle. It's nice to not have to have a parts card, and you got to with yours, but if you bought one off Bring a Trailer or something, you probably wouldn't get a parts car with it. Don't need a trailer for it. And one of the great things that you found with the Corvair 95 is if you have a rarer vehicle that's harder to get parts for, then let's say if you're restoring a 68 Mustang, parts are falling off trees. You just walk outside and catch them and install them on your car. If you have something that the Corvair trucks, people beat the hell out of them and just threw them away, and there aren't many left, like split window buses. So if you have a car like that, or my Saab Sonnet, you might want to buy one that's in really good condition. Like if you're importing a car from a foreign country, you find the nicest one you can afford, because then the parts are still there. You don't have to replace them because they're still there. They're still good. Of course, the cons to that, man, we've seen it costs a lot up front. You can, to get a good quality restoration or a original vehicle, it can cost, 10 times as much as something that is solid but doesn't run. Last guy might have missed something. We noticed that with the with the truck, what did he miss when he drove home and looked around? The entire cooling system?
Heating system.
He didn't install shrouds.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The guy missed. He restored an air-cooled truck. He didn't install any of the cooling shrouds, so the truck basically had no cooling.
The way it's designed to work.
The way it's designed to work, so that if you're trying to get it to have optimum cooling efficiency, it's like you didn't install the water pump and relied on thermosiphon. It's just like it's sketchy. So just be aware of that. It's a good idea to have someone come with you who knows the cars, or to have it inspected by an expert or something like that, or inspect pictures of it to make sure that you're really getting what you should get.
And I didn't have all the parts for the cooling shrouds either. So
Yeah.
I mean, got some off the
And
parts engine.
He's gonna have to pull the cylinder heads off to install the shrouds. So
Right.
something that you might not realize when you're getting the car, but if someone knows what they're looking for, they're gonna say, "Whoa, buddy! Like, it's a nice body, but you got to do some engine work, something like that."
And that's easy in the big scheme of things, really.
Yeah. And then if you have something all original that's really clean and nice, obviously you're going to have original paint. You're going to have original materials. You might have a really brittle materials. I know I was working in the Corvair here and pulling the rear seat down, and I was trying to put the seat back up because it seemed like it locked down somehow. And I just like grabbed the top of the seat and my fingers went through the vinyl because the vinyl was that brittle. So something to keep aware of, if you have older vinyl or something, it's not as durable.
It looked pretty good from a distance, but
yeah, you get in it, you sit down in the seat, and the whole thing cracks apart. You don't want to maybe deal with the preservation aspect of that, and that can turn into a restoration job pretty quickly. Another, what I've ended up with the Corvair here is I've ended up restoring it, and this is part 2 of the episode of maybe you find a clean car and it's clean and it's rust free, but it's pretty worn out. You can just take the entire thing apart and restore it. And when I grew up, I thought this is kind of what restorations meant, is that you took the car down, you stripped every part off of it, and then you put them back together when they're all redone. And you get a nice car out of it. There's no two ways about it. You get a good satisfaction for getting the car back on the road. You can learn about the car inside and out. You know exactly how things go together. But there are also cons. Of course, when you take it down and you have to do every single thing on the car, you can't drive it for a while, like a couple of years minimum. I would say like 1 year is probably the bare minimum to repaint it and kind of reinstall everything. If you farm stuff out, like if you send the engine out or you send the body work out, it can significantly cut down on the time it takes to do it. But of course, that price inches up toward the price to buy the car. And as you restore it, you're probably going to spend more money overall than if you bought it. Just the initial investment is going to be less. So if you, like me, have an easier time paying for something now and buying parts later rather than saving up a bunch of money in the first place and then buying a nice one, you're probably going to be better off with the restoration project, especially if you do a lot of stuff yourself, labor yourself. I really enjoy when I'm working on my own cars that I know that work has been done to my standards. And if you have high standards, that's probably the way to go. If you buy a car that's already been restored and it was restored by someone with lower standards than you have, it's not a great situation. And you're going to end up probably doing twice the work that you would have otherwise. Logan, I feel your pain. The F100 actually has got a crack in the seat that I have to take the seat cover off of and probably repair from the backside. I'm not looking forward to it. I've been putting it out for 10 years. Otherwise, restoring, if you're doing modifications, like this one's getting rally modifications. So it's easier to do some of that stuff as you got the car apart, putting a skid plate under the engine. It's easier to do when you have the engine out and you're already restoring the engine. I can put a high capacity oil pump in there and it's already there. It's easy to access. I'm already doing it. Everything else is clean. It's good. So if you're doing minor modifications like that, it's pretty easy. I'm putting racing seats in it. So as I put in the new floor pans, it's easier to put in the racing seats because everything's right there. I don't have to repaint it. I'm painting it anyway. Great way to do that. You have the opportunity to take it down for major body work. It's a lot harder to do that if the car is on the road and you're trying to keep it rolling.
That's a really good point, because if like the pickup that I'm painting now, we needed it for rally.
Yeah.
So I do a little bit and then
The
put it back on the road.
K2500.
Yeah, put it back on the
Yeah.
road and then come in again and do more. And it was a lot more
Yeah.
work that way
The
than
beds
taking it
come off
offline.
twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, if you rely on the vehicle to do a certain thing in your life, yeah, you might be better off buying one that's already done, or taking it down for a long time and knowing that you're not going to have it for a year or two. Um, one of the pros is, if you use the quality parts and you use quality labor and you do the right processes and procedures, you should have a very reliable car for a long time. And then on the flip side of that, if something goes wrong, you've already done the work. You know how to fix it easy. You know what system it is. I know with the Saab, I had some issues trying to figure out the ignition system, and after all, now I can take that thing down in an auto parts store parking lot and set the points if I need to. But now that I have done all that work, I know that I'm using the correct points cam lube, and I don't have that problem anymore. So if you were to buy a car off Bring a Trailer or something, you might not know those procedures, especially if the car is built with technology you're not familiar with. Um, let's see. Harder to restore it if there's less parts availability. And with the Saab Sonnet, can be a challenge to find certain things, especially trim pieces, especially like taillight lenses and stuff like that, that they degrade over time. And if you have a trouble finding them, it's going to take longer to restore the car overall. And obviously, you're gonna have to wait a couple of years to drive the car. I bought this thing in 2022, I think, like January 2022. I have not driven it, not 1 foot. I think I got behind the wheel and steered it out of the barn when we pushed it down the hill, and that's all of that I've got to enjoy it. Obviously, one of the cons, if you're buying all these parts and doing the installation, yeah, you're going to save a lot on labor compared to paying someone else to restore it for you, but you're also going to spend more on the parts and the car overall when you put them all together. And depends if that's something you're looking for or not. Let's see. Project creep is really easy to get into. Like if you if you don't set clear boundaries when you're coming into the project, it gets out of control really quickly. I mean, I ended up doing cutting a foot section out of my front fender because I said, "Oh crap! Like this, I found some stuff I don't like. I got to do something about it." So just be aware that can happen very quickly and spiral into thousands of dollars. That Chevy pickup that he's driving, I got for free in like 2019 from my uncle. He hadn't driven it in 2 years. I put a bunch of work into it. I replaced the clutch in a parking lot in the winter, and that stuff will creep up on you eventually where you've done way too much work. Like I've done so much work and I've gotten it to a certain point, and then you did way more work, but it's going to be nice. And eventually,
well, I think it's
very
important.
close.
Yeah, I think it's important that if you're going to do something, don't leave something undone. If you have it all apart, I mean, do it completely and do it right, and use quality parts. And
that is a great segue into number 3, the revival. Do it right, do it once. Love for a nice wheat beer. Yes, indeed. Sometimes it takes a little something extra to bring the stress level down in the garage. Yeah. Anyway, so the revival. So I'm going to define a revival as a car. You're buying a car that hasn't run in many years. You do the bare minimum to get it on the road safely, and then you do the restoration piece by piece over time. And I did this with the Saab Sonnet. I got it running. I ended up having taking the heads into a head shop, and I did the stuff with the engine to make that work. And I had a hell of a time for months, I think a year, to get the fuel system figured out to the point that it would be reliable and not die on me within like 3 miles of driving. And that's something that you're going to end up with if you have a revival type car. Something is going to be a nagging issue. You're going to say, well, it's kind of roadworthy. I don't really want to take the whole thing apart. I don't really want to get it off the road for that long. Like I do road rallies, so I want to do these, every month or so. And if I have to take the car down, take the engine out, and do a clutch job, which I had to do, that puts a very significant time pressure on your car. or on your job to repair the car in that way. And I found myself pulling the engine out
We pulled
2
it
or 3
twice,
times.
at least twice.
At
Yeah.
least 2 times out of the Saab Sonnet. And if it was a restoration style, I would take the engine out, I would go through the whole thing, I would restore the engine bay completely, and then I would put it back in. Unfortunately, I'm at the point where I've been trying to keep it going so long, trying to do littler jobs and cut it into chunks, do the clutch here, do the engine mounts here, do the exhaust here, that it ends up being a lot more work. You have to redo the same job 3-4 times to do different things, and it gets really old. Right now, the Saab is not on the road because my brake pads are really down, really low. I need to go through and pull the entire front suspension out. And if I did a full restoration, of course, I wouldn't have to do that because it would have been done. But now I got to enjoy the car for a while. So, do you have the patience to do the same job 5 times and act like you're on a race team and get really good at pulling the lower ball joints out of a Saab Sonnet? I mean, I'm pretty quick at that now, but do you really want to do that 5 times? I don't know, probably not. And then the rarer the car, the harder it is because you end up having to source those parts. You do still get the satisfaction of getting the car back on the road. You get that immediate like dopamine rush of getting your car running. Especially if it's been sitting a long, long time. It's really, really fun to get that thing going, even if it's just for the sake of getting it running. And if it's just a parts car, maybe you get it running and that's fun by itself.
Well, I think the other nice thing is when you're doing a complete renovation instead of a revival, you're kind of driving something that the body's kind of rough. Needs some paint, doesn't really look good on the road.
The Saab is very embarrassing to drive on the road.
Yeah.
Because the rear quarter panel was hit at some point, and someone had primed it but not really painted very well. And then I tried to do a paint match on it, and the paint match that I got from the paint store was horrible. And it looks like a totally different color, and it's still embarrassing to drive around with it, and cracks and crazing on the fiberglass. And part of the reason that I painted this thing before doing everything else is just it's so much more presentable, and it's so much more
more satisfying.
You get satisfaction out of working on it, and you know that it can be nice and it's going to be nice, and you get that especially if you have a hard time keeping your spirits up. It's way nicer to have a car that looks good if you can do that first. Initial purchase price can be very low with a revival, as you've seen everywhere. The Saab Sonnet was free from my uncle, or like $1, because he was trying to get rid of stuff. The Ford Tractor was $1. He's trying to get rid of stuff. This car I bought for like parts car money. You can get into a car and get it rolling. Gavin's asking, when are we going to make the Sonnet presentable? Well, we're going to have to get this thing on the road and daily worthy first before we even touch the Saab again. But I think if you guys like the Corvair stuff, the Corvair is kind of like a backwards car in a lot of ways compared to what you expect. And I think you would enjoy the Saab too, because it's also backward, but in the opposite way, front engine, front wheel drive with a V4. So once we get the Corvair on the road, that's a solid proposition to hop in and drive once a week. I don't drive very much, but once we go and get that to that point, we are going to take the Sonnet down and like rip all the suspension off it. Once that gets to that solid point, I think there's some scary rust in there that I don't want to touch, but I'm gonna have to bite the bullet on that. Probably end up doing paint work after that's done, probably sometime next summer. I have to also decide if I'm gonna put a roll cage in that. We'll see.
Yeah, sometimes that doesn't feel like the safest car rolling down the road.
No, that's like a skateboard with fiberglass on top. If you get rust in the lower firewall, that's everything that's holding your car together, and it can just snap. The pros to the revival, initial purchase price very low. You can do your modifications as you go. If you want extra stuff, I wanted driving lights. For me, 2 steel beams is not enough to be going 36 miles an hour on snow and ice down a twisty valley road or on a rally. I can go in there and add my rally lights and do whatever I want. It's a lot easier than having some original thing that you have to go and redo stuff on. Cons, yeah, your cost is going to be even higher than just restoring a car. In some cases, if you have a if you set boundaries on yourself and say this car is not going to look nice, it's just going to be a fun car, then maybe you can keep your costs down. But if you're trying to get a car that eventually looks pretty nice, a revival is going to take more time and more money overall than any other option. Um, Recently purchased a 63 Corvan. Nice. Came with original engine and 66 Spider turbo engine. Do you recommend a side-by-side rebuild? So I am not a Corvair expert, but what I will tell you, John, is that I've read that Corvair engines and drivetrains are very much like Legos, kind of like 90s Hondas. You can just drop one out and put a different one in, and it should be pretty straightforward relative to if you got a slant six Dodge Dart and you want to throw a small block V8 in it, it's going to be a lot more work than going from like a 95 horsepower Corvair into a 140. So if I were you, I'd probably get it running the way it is, and you can sort out the brakes and the transmission and all the other parts first, and then you can work on the Spider turbo engine and then do that swap as a single unit. That's probably what I do if the engine runs. If it doesn't run,
Well, there's one thing to think about, John, and that is the truck engines, the blocks are different than the car engines.
that's right.
Because the trucks are designed that you can check the oil from that back door and you don't have to lift the cover. So I think you could probably use the block off the truck engine and the other parts.
Frankenstein.
Yeah. But
you're into a full engine rebuild and doing
Anyways.
main bearings and stuff.
because that's the trouble with my truck is they put in a car engine, and then the guy since got a parts truck. So I do have a truck engine, and I need to decide someday if I want to do that. It's not a huge deal to lift up the cover and check the oil and do it, but it'd be nice to have it in the back.
Yeah, and it's not correct. You want to be able to open that. It's got the little access door above the license plate, behind the license plate.
Right.
So you can just pull your dipstick out, look at it, and put it back in. But if you have the car engine, you have to take out a bunch of screws in the cargo area and then go pull the dipstick out to the top. So.
But I always left the cover loose without screws anyways, so you can just lift it up. I mean, when I drove it in high school, I never had it screwed down.
Yeah, but that wasn't a restoration either. That was
No.
just a worn out vehicle.
Right. So something to think about.
Depends if they run or not.
Yeah.
Um,
A lot of them were run hard and they were air cooled and
yeah, but I mean, one of the great things, part of the reasons that I approached Clark's for the sponsorship is that they sell new cylinders. Like, what other engine can you just buy new cylinders and install them? It's amazing. So if you want to do something like that, man, you got a great starting point to do that. Young Tyler has a long lifetime ahead to amass a warehouse of Corvair parts. You should see inside the barn. I have like 2 whole rooms full of random car parts. It's kind of a problem.
well, we want to get rid of parts cars, so we're going to
Yeah.
strip everything we can
Yeah.
off of them.
And the
before
funny
we
thing
get rid
is,
of them.
yeah, the Greenbrier was a parts car and the ramp side is a parts car too for his ramp side. But I might end up using his ramp side parts car for parts for the Greenbrier to get that better, because I was looking around today and the body doesn't look that bad. There are a few parts that are going to need fabrication, but
on the Greenbrier.
yeah, a lot of pieces of the Greenbrier that are rusted out are nice on the ramp side. And so anyway, get plenty of parts. The Greenbrier is also full of parts, so it's a matter of where to put them all at this point. Were they ever sold outside the USA? I believe they were in small numbers. Again, I'm not a Corvair expert, but I've seen pictures of them outside. And remember, for many, many years, there were no big laws to importing random stuff like Lloyds and Goliaths and all kinds of weird stuff into the U.S. And people would go out abroad and work for the military, and they'd buy a car like Opel in Germany and bring it home. Or like I remember hearing about people buying Volkswagen Type 3 notchbacks and bringing them back, and that was the only notchback in the country or whatever, because they get to do that. And on the same token, I think that a lot of cars were imported into Europe. There were small dealer chains in the 50s, 60s, 70s, but I think people did also import them. I have seen pictures also of like Hummers in Japan. Like, what are you doing? But yeah, some people call the Corvair the best European car ever built in America.
We know there's some down in South America, right?
Oh yeah, there's a
It's a cool video.
oh the Darien Gap.
Yeah.
So Chevrolet took like a half a dozen Corvairs, 1960s, 61, so early Corvairs sedans, and they drove them from
Detroit.
like yeah, it was.
Yeah.
They went from Detroit and tried to drive them to Panama, basically. And there's a area of the Central America where it's just jungle, unimproved. There's zero roads. People normally have to take a ferry around it on the ocean. But they took these cars and they had a couple like support trucks like Napco 4x4 service trucks or
Right.
something. So they'd bring extra parts and fuel and stuff. But they were straight up bombing these things through the jungle. They'd have to take machetes and chop down their way. Amazing video if you ever can go find that on YouTube. They had the original Chevrolet promotional video, and you can see these guys just going full bore into a ravine and just like crashing the Corvair and then like winching it up the other side and keeping going. And one of them they lost. It's still down there. Couple. Anyway,
A few more comments or
John, keeping the Corvair Corvan original, going to rebuild both engines. Oh, very nice. Yeah, I mean, I think I would do the first rebuild on the engine that you're less concerned about, maybe the Corvan engine, and then you can work on the Spider, which is going to probably have a little bit more weird parts. Probably do the Spider afterward. That's what I would do at least. I find that I did all the work on the purple Saab Sonnet. If you guys haven't seen the Saab Sonnet videos, go back and watch a few of them. They're fun. But it was so much easier to do the green Sonnet that I did a Will It Run on this year because I've already done the work. But it'd be a lot easier to do the work on the crappy version first and do the nice one afterward. So you kind of have the workings in your brain already. I don't have the luxury of that for this Corvair. Everything's the first time I've done it. Mini car. If you think the parts are expensive, try Bolivia and Estonia. I bet. If I won the lottery, I would import a Skoda 130 RS, and I would have to pay exorbitant prices for everything. So yeah, I think honestly, for the way classic cars are, I think Corvairs are really affordable for both buying them and in buying parts. Even if you buy the nicest parts available, they're still very affordable compared to buying. Try to go build a 440 CUDA. Go enjoy.
well, yeah, because Clark's is just fabulous. You could almost build a car from scratch.
Yeah, they
With all the
build
stuff
it
they
new.
have.
You know, if you had Clark's availability, basically like a 68 Mustang, you can buy a brand new body shell. If you could do that for a Corvair and get, I think like a body shell, engine block, and a couple other minor things, you could basically build a car brand new. And that's just incredible to me.
So there is a short on the ramp side on Tyler's channel. Right?
Yeah, and we'll have more videos. We have some stuff half filmed for the ramp side, heater stuff, and of course the heaters on the ramp sides had to go all the way under the cargo bay and then back up in front of you. So it's a lot more heater stuff than a car is, and harder to find it as well. But we'll have a video on that eventually when we get around to it. It's just having a million projects going on at once. Love to see content. Yes, when this thing gets on the road, I am looking to do a Will It Run in the Greenbrier. It's got a power glide, and we have a core 4-speed that I can throw in it because I hate automatics. Mopar muscle cars are thin tin cans. Doesn't make me not want one. Yeah, so Revival, what else? Car will not be 100% up to par for a long time. You just have to know that you're not going to be able to have it perfect for a while. You got to be okay with that. Chilton or Haynes, here, let me show you. A friend of mine sent me this. He's a Saab guy, but he had this Corvair manual. If you shoot me an email, I'll send this to you. John.
But you also have the
But yeah, it's inside. But the factory service manuals are so much better. Just go get a reproduction factory service manual. They're inside right now. I'm not going to go grab them, but you can get normally the way they do it back then. I think they still do it this way today, although they don't make physical manuals anymore. You get a manual for the first model year or the second model year, and then they'll do a supplement for the changes they do afterwards. So I have here, I'll show you this. For the F600, we have a 61 Ford truck shop manual, and this goes from everything from the half-ton F100 all the way up to tilt cab semi trucks. And then this is the 62 to 63 supplement, and that'll show you all the different changes. So for instance, my 62 F600 uses all the regular suspension and chassis stuff from here, but then I have to go in here to find the 262 engine info. So go buy the factory service manual. You can't imagine the amount of information in here and the amazing illustrations. It's one of my favorite things about these old manuals is they used to take a picture and then have someone airbrush the whole picture. Just gorgeous. See the way yes, sheet metal for structure elements, especially for a unibody like a Corvair. You want to be able to see what's important. What can I cut out, and what is going to collapse the car if I try to replace it? Because on a body on frame car, cut out the rocker panel. It's not that big of a deal. This thing, yeah. I did a couple of shorts a while back on a 92 Corolla I bought for $150. And it's scary because the entire rocker is gone on both sides. So when you go over a bump, you can hear the cant rails or the roof rails kind of buckling as you hit bumps. It's like, I don't know how long that thing is going to survive, but it's a parts car. I'm going to try to make that engine find a better home. Yeah, John, if you want the auto books book, let me know. Just send me an email, clbmrallyteam@gmail. Otherwise, I would recommend getting the factory service manual.
They're really not that expensive for what you get.
No, the truck ones I think are like $70 for the manual. For my 65, it's the specific 65 manual because 65 was different in a lot of ways. But yeah, it's great. It's worth it. It's worth the money for sure. Especially electrical diagrams. Oh my God. The one last thing with Revival is, hey, you're going to need a couple parts cars, and project creep is going to be real. If you don't have a specific event you're trying to get to or a specific a time that you need to get done with the car, it's going to drag itself out for a long time. That's part of the reason that this Corvair is on a time limit now. And I'm going to announce it in the next video, but since you guys are here and I appreciate you being here, I'm going to give you the down low on what's going on with the Corvair. Clark's is sponsoring me to drive this car at the 2024 Press On Regardless Rally in St. Ignace, Michigan. It is about 500 miles of aggressive driving on gravel back roads. Going to have to stay exactly on time the whole time, go through potholes, bumps, puddles, everything that the UP can throw at you. This rally goes through. They've been doing it since 1949. It was a national championship event for a couple of years that people came in, brought their cars from Europe and competed in it. I'm very excited. We did it last year in Gavin's Supra, and it was phenomenal. So this is gonna be really hard on the car, and it's gonna need a lot of prep work to get there. So I want to make sure that I can get all this stuff done in time. Gavin's coming over tomorrow to put vinyl decals on this thing and give it a nice rally livery. SCCA, Sports Car Club of America, holds TSD rallies, time, speed, distance rallies, also known as road rallies, all over the country. It's pretty fun. Motorsportreg.com is where you go to find them. eBay is a nice source for the original manuals. I know Clark sells them. They're for different cars. You can find them on eBay or the specialty places. Corvair is a perfect rally car. Actually, these Corvairs, this first gen Corvair, won Press On Regardless twice in the 60s. So it's kind of like a returning home to a Made in America car, All American Rally, All American team. So is Gavin American? He might be a Russian plant. I don't know. 20 Corvairs to compete against Ford and Ferrari. Really? Oh, this is the Yenko, right? The Yenko Stinger. Yeah, there's also the Fitch, the Yenko. I don't know if there's other stuff there. I know that Ford had a factory rally team in like 1969 or 70. They had half a dozen brand new Mustangs that they had people drive all around. One of the guys who drove one of those back in like 69 or 70 is actually, he competes in some of the Minnesota rallies we have. It's pretty cool to see him still at it with a little Mini or whatever rental car he gets. Do you guys have any other questions? I mean, I think we went over everything. We've been going for 40 minutes. Yeah. Any last thoughts that we can do before? I've tried the restorations. I've tried the revivals, and I've got a nice F100 that is pretty solid, and it's been a good truck for the past 15 years for me. I think I've put like 12,000 miles on it myself, done huge road trips, and hoping this car is that reliable eventually. Thank you. Is it Sid Rider? SYD Rider? Anyway, thank you for hanging out with us. All you guys, I really appreciate it. And hey, if you're looking for some cool stuff, I'm trying to make YouTube more financially sustainable for myself. So if you want to go over to steelbeamrally.team and see if you want anything there, that's be awesome. Gavin asked what Project Creep is. So Gavin, you should go check out his channel, Red Hen Racing. He bought a 1985 Toyota Supra. I assume that he got a pretty good deal on it, and the trailer arms were rusty and snapped in half at Press On Regardless last year. So I talked to the organizer of that rally. He says that usually someone breaks their car every year, and the trick is to not be that person. But Gavin ended up having to rebuild his whole suspension system out back. Had to get one parts car, and part of the parts car parts were not good either. So he had to go on eBay and buy like another control arm for an exorbitant price. Project Creep is real, man. Anyway, check that out. Appreciate you guys being here. Keep an eye out for the next video. We're going to put vinyl on this thing. I'm going to install some headlights, and we should have big time salt in Minnesota. That's why it was rusty. And I have to do the floorboards for this because of that too. But yeah, we're gonna have a video out. I'm shooting for next weekend for the next video on the Corvair. It's gonna be a big one, but there's a lot of stuff, and I want to make it really satisfying to watch when we go from a primed car all the way to a car that looks like it's on the road already. So keep an eye out. We'll do more projects as we can. I'm gonna be hitting it hard on the Corvair this summer. Excited to see you with me. Thanks, guys. Press on. Press on, right?
Press
3,
on.
2, 1. Press on.